welcome to our Psych 100 podcast. I'm John.
I'm Joe.
I'm Gwen.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Maura.
And today we want to talk about memory, specifically something we found interesting about memory, how our perceptions of events and other people's perceptions can be completely different from the actual event. So to start off, we have three basic types of memory.
1, 2, 3.
We have sensory, short-term, and long-term. And we want to look during this podcast at explicit long-term memory, specifically episodic memory, which is also known as flashbulb memory. We call it this because these memories, they're major life events, major global events that we put into our minds. We have specific details. We remember all the specifics of where we were when this event happened. And what we found interesting about episodic memory was despite all these details, despite all these specifics, they can still be completely wrong compared to the actual event or other people's memories.
Yeah, I found an article that relates very much so to this topic. Essentially, a man named Neil Ferber was sentenced to death for killing a mobster and a female companion in Philly. This was based on an eyewitness testimony of a husband and wife. The wife originally identified Mr. Ferber in a photo, but then again could not identify the same man in a lineup. Though her husband was able to identify him in the lineup. The eyewitness was not the final verdict of the case, but it was a strong support, and he was later freed. Though this is just one of many cases where a sketchy eyewitness testimony helped lead to a wrongful conviction. Some statistics show that currently today around 35% of exonerations were made due to mistaken witness IDs, and the largest of these numbers come from sexual assault cases where close to 75% of the exonerations were made because of a mistaken witness ID. I find it interesting that she was so sure after seeing the photo, and then later she could not ID the man in the lineup. What do you guys think happened there?
I think it sounds like a false memory to me.
Can you remind me what a false memory is again?
So it's an event you think happened but actually didn't. After the witness was shown a composite sketch of the suspect, the witness was able to confirm it was Mr. Ferber.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
But when seeing all the suspects lined up, she could not identify the suspect face to face. This would be considered a false memory because when she first saw the composite sketch, she was positive it was Mr. Ferber. But when having to identify the suspects in person, her memory was altered and she couldn't recall who it was. There are also things like repressed memories, which are when we prevent anxiety-provoking thoughts from reaching our consciousness.
That reminds me of the Oliver Sacks patient, Donald. Sacks wrote about Donald in the murder chapter of his book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. The case said that Donald was high on PCP when he murdered his girlfriend. He had no idea of his actions, which was likely a side effect of the PCP, which caused him to black out or repress the memory. Donald spent 4 years at a psychiatric hospital where he still had no recollection of the crime he committed. In his 5th year, Donald was out on a weekend parole when he got struck by a car. He suffered a really severe head injury and was suddenly experienced lurid flashbacks to the murder. The return of these repressed memories haunted Donald for the remainder of his life, and it's still questioned today why Donald suffered such amnesia, then a huge return.
So why is this stuff important to know in the first place?
All right, listen up.
Well, our own memory fallibility can fool others as well as ourselves, and though memory distortion may not seem like a huge issue, just looking at these few specific examples, it greatly affected the lives of Neil Ferber and the Oliver Sacks patient, Donald. I think it's important to remember we can't put as much trust in our memory as we think, especially when it comes to eyewitness testimony and the issue of wrongful prosecution. Although eyewitness testimony can make a deep impression on a jury, recognizing the fallibility of the memory and determining the credibility of eyewitnesses is crucial, especially in criminal cases where the defendant faces the death penalty. Understanding the way memory works and its limitations is important for everyone, and as we've seen, it can affect cases of life or death.
Alright guys, that's about all the time we have left for today, but we just want to say thank you for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.